Hey everybody, it's Elliot from Magoosh, and as you can see, I am not in the Magoosh studio where we usually record our YouTube videos. I am at home, and that is because of COVID-19, and I know that a lot of you out there are also affected in some way by it. What we want to do at Magoosh during this time is to create some new videos for people who maybe have more time to study now, or they are stuck in their houses like I am here in the Bay Area of California at the moment. So each week we're going to come out with a new video or two, maybe more, talking about IELTS and helping you to learn about what you need to know for the test. Okay, so you may hear my dog barking in the background. You might hear my kids as well. And we're just going to keep going through these videos as we do them from home here. So in this video, we're going to talk about IELTS Writing Task 2. And specifically, we're going to look at the Task 2 essay type where you have to write about advantages and disadvantages, okay? So what we're gonna do is first look at a sample question, and then we're gonna walk through how to organize a response to that question, okay? Give you some ideas about what to write about, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna invite you to write in the comment section below with questions you have, or you could even post a sample essay there. Now, I'm not going to be able to give tips and advice on every single essay in the comment section, but I'd like to try to choose a few of them and potentially create a follow-up video talking about things, showing you, first of all, an example of an essay to the prompt that we're going to look at. And then also giving advice about how to make improvements and things to do yourself, and maybe some things to avoid that we can notice as well. Okay, so let's dive right in with this video. So, task 2 question. Let's look at this line by line and then think about a little bit how to interpret this question, and I'll give you some tips on how to approach questions like these. So, let's read line by line. Prior to the internet, when students studied abroad, they tended to have much less contact with their family and friends. Nowadays, they're far more connected to people at home via the web. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this development? Use your own ideas, knowledge, and experience, and support your viewpoints with examples and evidence. All right, so a couple of things to notice about this prompt. First of all, the topic. You got to make sure you understand the topic, right? Mostly what we're supposed to write about in this essay are the trends that we currently face, right? That compared to the past, now when people study abroad, when they go abroad to study for an extended period of time, they can be very connected to friends and family members and anyone at home that they want to be connected to through the internet, through social media, through all those kinds of things. Okay, so we are supposed to think about what are the advantages and disadvantages of that? Now notice, you're not necessarily supposed to give your perspective in this essay. Some of these questions, some of these task 2 essays, advantages and disadvantage essays, ask you to take a side, to say which you agree with or which you think is better. This one does not. What you need to do in this essay is to provide a balanced perspective on the topic, right? So you're going to give equal consideration to both sides, the advantages and disadvantages. Now, if you want to, in the conclusion, it's okay if you give a preference about either side of the argument, but in the body of your essay, and especially in your thesis statement, you should avoid presenting a preference for either side of this. You should indicate in your introduction that you're about to present a balanced picture of both sides for people to consider. Okay, so that's one piece of this that's important part of this essay to write about. So let's think about how to plan a response. I've paraphrased the topic, okay, so taken sort of both parts of it, the first 2 lines of the prompt, and put the topic in these words here. Nowadays, people who study abroad are far more connected to people at home via the web. Now we think about the advantages and disadvantages. Now, if you're like me, and I think many other people, it's going to be easier to think about advantages when you're brainstorming, right? I think the disadvantages of this new technology may be the more challenging side to think through. Okay, so this is a really simple thing, but if you're kind of stuck on what you want to write about. And maybe you even get through your brainstorming session and you still aren't quite sure what you want to say for any topic. Maybe this one, you haven't thought about a good disadvantage yet. Well, if you're running out of time, it's good to start with what you do know. So put those advantages first, that advantage paragraph first, if that's easier for you to think about, and start writing. And as you're writing, you may get ideas that you're thinking about. Okay, so remember, time is so important on these essays. You want to use these little strategies to save yourself time as you go. Definitely don't want to sit there staring at your paper, not knowing what to say. That would be the worst thing to do. Okay, let's think about advantages and disadvantages. I'm going to present a couple of points for each one. And then in the latter part of the video, we're going to think through an introduction and then some details about each one. Okay, some advantages first. So one advantage of this new our ability to communicate so easily when we're abroad is that it could, for some people, make cultural adjustment easier. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Well, for some people, they get really homesick when they travel abroad. They miss their family and friends a lot, right? And being able to stay connected to people via the web, via social media, any number of ways, could make it easier for those people to be abroad and not miss those folks so much, okay? And to adjust to the new culture because they are able to maintain communication with home in some way, to stay connected in some way, okay? That certainly doesn't describe everyone, but I think for a number of people that might be an advantage of this technology, of being connected so closely with people at home. Another one, it's much easier to maintain relationships while away, right? So for those relationships in your life, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents, your best friends, you want to know what they're doing, what happened in their day, what happened in their week, right? It used to be, and now I know this from experience, when I traveled abroad when I was in college, we had the internet, we had email, so we could communicate, but it wasn't very common. In fact, none of the places where I lived when I was living abroad had internet in people's homes. So you had to go travel somewhere to connect by email, okay? So that's very different, right? But prior to even that, you had to write letters or you had to make very expensive phone calls, okay? So it's not very likely in the past that you would have been maintaining your relationships, you're not what you know about what people are doing all the time and just connecting and hanging out with people. That's easier to do today, and it's easier to maintain relationships because you stay connected. All right, now the disadvantages. So for some people, it could prevent them from leaving their comfort zone, right? Here's the idea. If you're connected all the time on social media, you are not out there in the world, meeting new people, getting involved in clubs, doing things on campus if you're a student, right? To get connected to people. And so you're really, in that case, just staying inside your comfort zone, the place where you feel comfortable, which is your close relationships that you have back at home, the people that you communicate with in your own language. Okay, so one disadvantage of all this technology is it could actually get in the way of people reaching out and making new friends and meeting new people. Another idea here, it could slow down language learning. This is very close to the first idea in some ways, but it's a separate point. If you are engaged in communication with people from home, you are probably not using the target language that you're trying to learn while you're living and studying abroad. So that's, in a sense, that's kind of wasted time. You should be out there using the language, improving every time you get out there and use that target language, the language you're trying to learn, is an opportunity to improve and get better with it. Okay, so doing so much communication in using social media, using the internet in your native language could get in the way. Okay, that's the idea there. So here's just some brainstorming ideas. Now, I recommend to students for task 2 that you should spend at least 4 or 5 minutes brainstorming, coming up with something that looks like this, and a basic outline, a few bullet points. And if you can think of details that you would write for each of these points in your brainstorming period, that's great also, okay? But let's move on here. Let's think through now how to begin approaching this essay, writing the essay, if these are the points we want to make. All right, so first, the introduction. There are always two main things you need to do with a task 2 introduction. The number one is to paraphrase the topic, take the topic from the prompt, and basically put the main ideas in your own words. Change around the grammar, use synonyms, make the language your own, and present the topic of the essay that way. Then number 2, you need to, in a sentence at the end of your introduction, you need to present your thesis. And that's just simply the idea you're going to present in the essay. It is the perspective you're bringing to the essay, right? And for this one, the perspective we're bringing is that we're going to weigh both sides of the question. And that's it. We're not really providing an opinion on which one is better or worse. Our perspective is that we are being very neutral, being very balanced, and we're trying to present both sides equally. Okay, so we need an introduction that's going to present that view. So let's take a look at this. Sentence number 1 is my paraphrase of the essay topic. Let's read it. These days, when modern students attend school overseas, online communication allows them to connect much more easily with family and friends at home compared to the past. All right, so take a look. Compare this sentence in blue with the essay prompt, okay, if you need to. Notice how the grammar's different. Many of the words are different, okay? It is my own language, my own way of presenting the basic topic of the essay, all right? And then the thesis is quite simple for this essay. You simply need to let the reader know you're going to present a balanced comparison of the two sides of the issue. So the ease with which people can communicate today has a number of clear benefits, but it also has some drawbacks. Okay, so a reader would come along, read this sentence, and would know immediately that what I'm going to do in this essay is to first look at the positive side of all this, of the technology, the communication technology now for people who are studying overseas. And then I'm going to present some of the disadvantages. All right, so there is a sample introduction for you to use. You can use this as a model, and you could also write your own and then compare it to this one and see how it looks, okay? But this is a good example of an introduction for our essay prompt here. Okay, then all you need to do is write your body paragraphs, right? And for me, for body paragraph 1, I'm going to focus on advantages, right? And I'm going to try to list both of those points. I'd start with the first one and then provide some detail, some examples, or a story, something from your life, or somebody you know who may fit this particular point. Okay, so I could write about a student I had who was having a tough time adjusting to life in the United States and found it very helpful to use Facebook and other social media to stay connected with friends. And I could talk about how the student ended up being very successful because she felt supported by people at home and she could have that regular contact with them. Okay, so many different things you can say. You don't need to provide personal examples, but you do need to explain what you mean for each of these points. So my paragraph would start with a sentence that indicates I'm going to talk about advantages in this paragraph, and then I would start talking about each of these points in detail. Same for the disadvantages. You transition, you need a nice transition sentence to begin your next body paragraph, right? So a nice however, or something like that. Or on the other hand, or something that shows the reader you're going to switch gears and focus on something else. And you want to then indicate, okay, now this next paragraph is about the disadvantages, right? So you would say something like, however, there are also many disadvantages to some of this technology in relation to trying to adjust to new life in a new culture, something like that. Okay, you could do much better than that sentence, I'm sure. And then you provide your points and give details about each one. Okay, so you could say many different things about this. These are my 2 ideas for advantages and disadvantages, but there are many different things you could write about related to this essay prompt, okay? Okay, and then to finish it out, all you need to do is provide a conclusion. A conclusion should be basically just a paraphrase of what you said in the introduction, okay? You don't want to use the exact same language, but you want to close out your essay sort of presenting the topic again in your own words and putting a sentence there, something indicating, okay, well, what we've done is to look at both sides of this question, and we can see their advantages and disadvantages to this new technology, something like that. Okay, again, I'm sure you can do much better than that when you sit down and actually think about it for a while. Okay, so here's what I want you to do now. So first of all, as you can read on the screen there, we've got a free resource for you. If you want to know more about this essay type or task 2 essays, we've got a complete guide for you down below in the description. So go check that out. And then as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, so we've taken a look at how to respond to this particular essay prompt, and I've given you some ideas about how to organize a response and some ideas about what I would say in response to this question, okay? Now is your chance to ask me some questions. So in the comments below, ask a question, okay, about this essay, about task 2 essays, whatever it might be. You could also post your own essay, your own response to this question. Now, I cannot promise that I'm going to get to every single question and review all the essays, but what I would like to do is to make a follow-up video and answer questions and potentially look at some of your essays and point out some things that you're doing that are really great and maybe some things that could be improved so we can all learn from those things. Okay, so I'll leave that open for the next week or 2 or however, we'll see how many comments come in and then we'll follow up in the way that makes sense at that point. Okay, so good luck, and we'll see you soon in a new video. Stay healthy out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Just do what you need to do during this very unusual time. Okay? See you next time.